The House will please come to order. Those persons not having privilege of the floor will please vacate the chamber at this time, and all members and guests in the galleries will please rise as we are led in opening prayer this morning by the gentleman of the 5th, Doug Pethel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Let us pray. Our Father and our God, we thank you for allowing us to be here and assemble once again today. We just ask that you would be with everyone as they travel home today. Just give them safe travel to and from their destination. We ask you be with those who are not as fortunate as us. Be with those, especially in southern West Virginia and McDowell County, who are witnessing severe flooding. We ask you would just watch over them. Now watch over us, guide us, and in death save us. Amen.
Amen. All members and guests will please remain standing as we are led in the Pledge of Allegiance by the lady from the 3rd, Delegate Storch.
Would the guests in the gallery and the members please join me in saying the pledge? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Members and guests may be seated. Reading of the Journal.
Journal of the House of Delegates, Charleston, Thursday, February 6, 2020.
Lady in the 50th, Delegate Longstreth.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the further reading of the journal be dispensed with and having that it be approved as having been read.
The lady in the 50th asks unanimous consent that further reading of the journal be dispensed with and it be approved as having been read. Are there objections? The chair hears no objections. Lady from the 49th for an update on the order of the calendar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 46, Committee substitute for Senate Bill 470, Committee substitute for Senate Bill 487, Committee substitute for Senate Bill 500, and Committee substitute for Senate Bill 501 on third reading, special calendar are moved to the House calendar. Additionally, Senate Bill 321, Committee substitute for Senate Bill 532, and House Bill 4524, second reading special calendar to the House calendar to facilitate the session today, so we're not here for a very long time. Those are Senate bills. We just want to move. Thank you.
Introduction of guests. The gentleman of the 15th, Douglas Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a good friend and a co-worker in the rear gallery with us here. Took his birthday off to come up here and talk to people about his Second Amendment rights. Tommy Hodges, would you stand up and please make him feel welcome?
The gentleman of the 47th, Douglas Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the North Gallery, I have my stepdaughter here today with us, Carrie Ferguson. She's a graduate assistant with the Office of Undergraduate Research, and she's down here today for West Virginia Undergraduate Research Day. Please give her a big welcome.
The gentleman of the 10th, Douglas Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today in the North Gallery, we have some friends who are homeschoolers from Wood County. As I call their name, would they please stand? Darren, Bobby, Evans, Nathan, and Nathan Marsh. Sam, Courtney, Zara, Isabella Pogorski, and I'm sorry about that. Charles, Jessica, Hannah, and Jonathan Stevens. Ladies and gentlemen, these are our friends from Wood County. Please put your hands together and make them feel welcome.
The gentleman of the 13th, Douglas Higginbotham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the gallery behind us, we have folks from the First Two Network. If you all would please stand up. They just testified before the House Education Committee this morning. First Two Network is one of 5 alliances funded nationally last year by the National Science Foundation to diversify and strengthen STEM pipeline in West Virginia. It is the only alliance dedicated to changing outcomes in a single state. And the First Two Network brings over $7 million of federal investment to West Virginia to build, connect, and research programs to support and retain more rural, first-generation, and underrepresented students in STEM. If the House would please make them feel welcome.
The lady in the 38th, Douglas Graves.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have two introductions today. I want everyone to remember my great Fraser Singleton intern, Annika Leckley, from Germany, and I asked her to give me one thing she remembered from the session, and she said the highlight was always the whole session. I enjoyed it a lot. It was wonderful to see the difference between a country and a state. Thank you so much for welcoming me so warmly. I love to speak to all of you. So can we give her a round of applause? Thank you. I'm going to miss her. I also have a friend here in, I don't know which gallery he's in, but Trevor Morris, who is a senior at St. Albans. Hey, there he is, at St. Albans High School. And wow, you're dressed sharp. Great to see you, Trevor. Can we make him welcome?
The gentleman, the 22nd, Douglas Jeffries.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to announce our Doctor of the Day is Howard West Laverty from Madison, West Virginia, if the House would make him welcome.
The gentleman, the 44th, Douglas Hanna.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have two introductions today, if the House would please just bear with me. The first, though, I just want to thank my page, Alex, if he would please stand. He's been a tremendous help this week. He's helped me with constituent work, and he's really enjoyed his time in committee meetings. It was a pleasure to have you here as well as the rest of the Fraser Singletons. If the House would please thank him and make him feel welcome. And also, Mr. Speaker, I have a few pages here today. I think they're out and about right now, but they came all the way from Tennerton Elementary in Upshur County. Anya Moorhead, Liam Davis, and Nora Malone, and they were escorted here today by Sarah Malone, Leah Moorhead, and Robert Davis. If they would all please stand. Thank you guys so much for bringing your kids down on what wasn't the best of days, but if the House would make them feel welcome.
The gentleman, the 34th, Douglas Boggs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very, very happy, very pleased today to have in the South Gallery, along with my wife, Jean. And Mr. Speaker, this is important to you and I both. We have students, research students from Glenville State College here. If they would stand, Preston Allison, Tyler Moore, Sherry Davis, and their advisor, Dr. Sarah Sawyer from Glenville State College. Please make them welcome.
The gentleman, the 43rd, Douglas Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of Delegate Hartman and myself, I want to call the attention of the members. We have some people down from the 43rd District today. From High Rocks, we have Sarah Riley, and from Pocahontas County Schools, Joanna Burke-Kinderman, and also from the Green Bank Observatory, Sue Ann Heatherly, and from Etna and First 2 alumnus, Tyler Davis. If the House would please make them feel welcome.
The lady from the 4th, Douglas Zukoff.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to introduce again my Fraser Singleton intern, Haley Jones. We've had a great week together, and I wanted all of the House. Haley has some political aspirations. She's going to be running as part of an all-women's ticket as vice president of student body at Marshall University. So I just want to thank her for the week, and if we could all give her warm wishes on her future in politics.
The gentleman, the 19th, Douglas Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of Robbie Thompson and myself, I'd like to welcome 3 pages that are here from Buffalo Middle School in Wayne County. These pages are Mia Pitts, Ava Coburn, and Emma Maddox. And I'd also like to make a special welcome to Emma Maddox's father, who is a good friend of mine, and he's also assistant prosecutor in Wayne County, and I believe he is in the West Gallery. Mr. Maddox and Pages, would you please stand? House, make him a hearty welcome.
The gentleman, the 42nd, Douglas Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Delegate Lavender Bowe and I have pages today from Greenbrier County. If they will stand when I call their name: Emma Massey, Slayton Utterback, Gage Blevins, Liz Tallman, Joseph Londeray, Abigail Londeray, Kylie Criddle, and Megan Canterbury. And they're brought here today through bad weather back home in Greenbrier County in our West Gallery by these people. If they'll stand when I call their name: Jason Massey, Janine Utterback, Rebecca Rambolt, Hubie Blevins, Paul Tallman, Rob Londeray, Elizabeth Bauer, and Meredith Canterbury. Will the House please make them welcome?
The gentleman, the 17th, Douglas Rohrbach.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to take this moment to introduce and thank my Fraser Singleton intern, Ethan Lockhart, who may have to leave a little early. He plays on the baseball team at West Virginia State, and they've got to head on the road today. But I would like to take this opportunity to thank him and have the House make him welcome.
The lady in the 51st, Douglas Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, everyone. In the North Gallery, I have some friends here from Moms Demand Action. Can everyone please take a stand, and would the House please make them welcome?
The lady in the 51st, Douglas Fleischauer. The gentleman in the 36th, Douglas Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have a very special person with us today. On behalf of the delegates of the 36th, Andrew Robinson, Amanda East, Step Burton, and also for the lady from the 50th District, who is Staff Sergeant Linda Longstreth, we'd all like to welcome our guests who are in the South Gallery. We all know Mark Curtis, who is our cameraman that's with us almost every day. It is his daughter who is joining us here in West Virginia. Their daughter, Allie, is defending our country, and she's on her way to Fort Seals. I think that we should acknowledge Second Lieutenant Alexandra Curtis, if she would stand. She's a very unusual young woman. Welcome. You need to know that she is the public affairs officer for the Rhode Island National Guard. She has 4 college degrees, and in 2015, she was Miss Rhode Island in the Miss America pageant. Can you all please again welcome Allie, her mom, Kathy, and her dad, Mark Curtis.
The lady in the 51st, Douglas Fleischauer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to again introduce my Fraser Singleton intern, Ariana Islam. I didn't mention before that she is running for the House of Delegates. We have a 3-member district in Marion County where she lives, and 2 of our members are moving on to other places, and I think she has gotten a real eye-opening experience by working with us today, and I would like everyone to give her again a warm welcome and thank her for coming down here and helping us this week.
The gentleman the second, Douglas DeSario.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just got a nudge and said, do not introduce me again, but I would like to once again introduce, because I was stopped a couple times in the hallway this week, and apparently my announcement didn't get out to catch everyone, that my Fraser Singleton intern for this week is my beautiful youngest daughter, Carly, and she's had a ball here, and she got to see that I argue with other people than my family.
Are there other introductions this morning? If not, reports of, yes, the gentleman of 36, Douglas Rowe.
Yes, I would like to introduce again my intern for the week. Kevin Tickle from Bluefield State College has been so energetic and so helpful to me this week. He's carried things and done things and been with me the entire week, and I really appreciate his service, and I'd ask the members to give him welcome and good way home. Thank you.
Are there further introductions? If not, reports of standing committees.
Your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 4478, creating a lifetime ban for commercial drivers involved in human trafficking, and House Bill 4576, establishing a procedure for correcting errors in deeds of trust and mortgages. Reports back committee substitutes, therefore, with the recommendation that the committee substitutes each do pass.
The report will be received.
Your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 4178, requiring calls which are recorded be maintained for a period of 5 years. House Bill 4647, relating to limited video lottery permit holders. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 35, limiting civil penalty for littering conviction to $2,000. And committee substitute for Senate Bill 449, authorizing the Department of Commerce promulgate legislative rules. Reports the same back with the recommendation that they each do pass.
The report will be received.
Your Committee on Prevention and Treatment of Substance Abuse has had under consideration House Bill 4652, relating to tobacco usage restrictions. Reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass and that it be referred to the Committee on Health and Human Resources, then to the Committee on Judiciary.
The report will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Health and Human Resources, then the Committee on Judiciary.
Your Committee on Prevention and Treatment of Substance Abuse has had under consideration House Bill 4710, authorizing law enforcement agencies to create a referral program for voluntary treatment of addiction. Reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass and that it be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
The report will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Your Committee on Health and Human Resources has had under consideration House Bill 4583, requiring accountable pharmaceutical transparency, oversight, and reporting act. Reports the same back with amendment with the recommendation that it do pass as amended and that it be referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
The report will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
Your Committee on Health and Human Resources has had under consideration House Bill 2978, improving the quality of West Virginia's Medicaid program. Reports the same back with amendment with the recommendation that it do pass as amended and that it be referred to the Committee on Finance.
The report will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on Health and Human Resources has had under consideration House Bill 4551, relating to subsidized adoption. Reports the same back with amendment with the recommendation that it do pass as amended and that the second reference to the Committee on Finance be dispensed with.
The report will be received. Lady from the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, the two chairs have conferred on this matter, and I now ask unanimous consent that the second reference of the bill to the Committee on Finance be dispensed with.
The lady from the 49th asks unanimous consent that the second reference to the Committee on Finance for House Bill 4551 be dispensed with. Does the chair hear objection to the request? The chair hears no objection, and the second reference to the Committee on Finance will be dispensed with. Next report.
Your Committee on Health and Human Resources has had under consideration House Bill 4573, relating to Medicaid subrogation liens of the Department of Health and Human Resources. Reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass and that it be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
The report will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Your Committee on Health and Human Resources has had under consideration House Bill 4669, exempting participants in the Jobs and Hope program from Medicaid forfeiture for 1 year after certain conditions are met. Reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass and that it be referred to the Committee on Finance.
The report will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 4544, relating to possession of any controlled substance on the premises of or within 200 feet of a public library. Reports back to committee substitute, therefore, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass.
The report will be received. Are there further reports of standing committees? If not, reports of select committees. Message from the executive, message from the Senate.
The clerk of the Senate announced that the Senate has passed with amendment committee substitute for House Bill 4042 requiring agencies exempt from some or all of state purchasing requirements to adopt procedural rules.
The message will be received. The lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that the bill be taken up for immediate consideration.
The lady from the 49th asked unanimous consent that committee substitute for House Bill 4042 be taken up for immediate consideration. Is there objection? The chair hears no objection. Lady from the 49th to proceed.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4042 requires procedural rules for agencies exempted from purchasing provisions. All the Senate amendment does is adds the code citation for higher education rulemaking authority. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I move we concur with the Senate amendment.
The lady from the 49th moves that the House concur in the Senate amendment to committee substitute for House Bill 4042. Are there members who wish to speak to the passage or the adoption of the amendment? If not, those in favor of adoption of the amendment will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it. The chair declares the Senate amendments adopted. The question now before the House is the passage of the bill as amended by the Senate and concurred in by the House. Are there members who wish to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 96 ayes, 0 nays, and 4 members absent not voting. A majority of members elected having voted in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4042.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next message from the Senate.
The Senate has passed Senate Bill 482, eliminating permit requirement for storing concealed handgun in vehicle on school property for persons over 21.
The message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
The Senate has passed Senate Bill 620, authorizing Division of Corrections and Rehabilitation approve home plans for inmates.
The message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
The Senate has passed committee substitute for Senate Bill 625, creating one-day annual license to permit charitable auction of sealed, rare, antique, or vintage liquor bottles.
The message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
The Senate has passed committee substitute for Senate Bill 629, clarifying alcohol by volume percentage for certain wines.
The message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary. Are there further Senate messages? If not, resolutions.
House Concurrent Resolution 68, Kidd Brothers Veterans Memorial Bridge.
Lady of the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the further reading of resolutions introduced be dispensed with and that each resolution be considered as formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as indicated on the chamber automation system.
The lady from the 49th asked unanimous consent that further reading of resolutions introduced be dispensed with and each resolution be considered as having been formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the chamber automation system. Are there objections? The chair hears no objections. Petitions, motions, bills introduced.
House Bill 4736 relating to qualifications for a commercial driver's license permit.
Lady from the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the further reading of bills introduced be dispensed with and that each bill be considered as formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as indicated on the chamber automation system.
The lady from the 49th asked unanimous consent that further reading of bills introduced be dispensed with and that each bill be considered as having been formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the chamber automation system. Are there objections? The chair hears no objections. Unfinished business. Bills on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4083 requiring the West Virginia Parkways Authority to accept the use of credit and debit cards for paying tolls.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? The chair hears none and recognizes the gentleman of 56, Douglas Howe, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of this bill is to require the West Virginia Parkways Authority to accept the use of credit and debit cards for paying tolls on the West Virginia Turnpike. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there members who wish to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 96 ayes, 0 nays, and 4 members absent not voting. A majority having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4083.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, then the title is read by the clerk, will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate, request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4361 relating to insurance law violations.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? The chair hears none and recognizes the gentleman of the 12th, Douglas Westfall, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 4361, by request of the Insurance Commissioner to update the insurance fraud. The bill makes several revisions and updates to the Insurance Fraud Prevention Act. The bill defines the term fraudulent insurance act and enumerates numerous acts of omissions that consist of a fraudulent insurance act. The bill authorizes the Insurance Commissioner to accept proceeds from court-ordered forfeitures proceedings and requires that the proceeds be deposited in the new Special Revenue Fund. Mandatory reporting requirements are expected to provide that any person outside the Insurance Commissioner's jurisdiction with knowledge of insurance fraud may provide information requested by the Commissioner, and persons engaged in the business of insurance are required to report suspected insurance law violations to the Commissioner. Section 8 of the Act, which established the Insurance Fraud Unit, is amended to increase the unit's investigating ability. The bill also creates the criminal offenses for committing a fraudulent insurance act and interfering with the enforcement of the act. Person convicted of a felony involving in dishonesty or breach of trust related to the business of insurance are prohibited from participating in the insurance business, and persons in the business of insurance are prohibited from permitting such persons from participating in the insurance business. Mr. Speaker, that's the bill, and I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Do members wish to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, then those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 95 ayes, 3 nays, and 2 members absent not voting. A majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4361.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title is read by the clerk, will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate, request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4444, establishing medals of valor and medals for bravery for emergency medical services, firefighters, and law enforcement officers.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, the chair recognizes the gentleman of the 16th, Douglas Linville, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of this bill is to create a West Virginia Medal of Valor that can be awarded to EMS personnel, firefighters, and law enforcement officers that go above and beyond the call of duty. The process of awarding a medal requires one of 3 honor boards appointed by the Senate to recommend a candidate, and the legislature adopt a concurrent resolution agreeing to the recommendation. This bill and this recognition to our first responders comes to us at the request of Congressional Medal of Honor recipient Woody Williams. Woody has lived a life of service after having distinguished himself among the greatest West Virginians and Americans of the greatest generation in World War II. His wish is to have a way to honor our first responders who save our lives, keep us safe, and run toward danger and disaster rather than away from it. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Do members wish to speak to the passage of the bill? The lady from the 38th, Douglas Graves.
Mr. Speaker, if there's unanimous consent, I would like to ask that I be added as a co-sponsor of this bill, which came out of the committee I was a part of.
Objection is heard. Do members wish to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, the question is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 98 ayes, 0 nays, and 2 members absent not voting. A majority having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4444.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4453, expanding the eligibility requirements for private investigator and security guard licensure.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? The chair hears none and recognizes the gentleman of 56, Douglas Howell, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of the bill is to require a rational nexus between the denial of a license for a private investigator or security guard to be related to the crime and the denial is based on. Make fees for licensure more reasonable by eliminating fees for non-residents and capping renewals at $50, and to recognize military service experience that counts towards the requirements to be a licensed security guard or investigator. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? The gentleman of 35th, Douglas Byrd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman yield?
Yes,
My only
Chair does yield.
question is, about a year or two ago, we passed a bill that allowed the state police to have secondary jobs. So are they exempt from this if they do a security job off hours, or are they going to have to apply for this as well?
I'm told that would not change.
Okay, thank you.
Do other members wish to speak to the bill? If not, then the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on this question. There are 96 ayes, 2 nays, and 2 members absent not voting. Majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4453.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, then the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
House Bill 4466, Certificates of Insurance Act.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? The chair hears no objections and recognizes the gentleman of 54th, Douglas Hott, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of this bill is to give the insurance commissioner authority over certain certificates of insurance. It addresses form requirements, limitations on use, notice requirements, applicability, enforcement penalties, and rulemaking. Specifically, this bill adds definitions for certificate of insurance, insurance producer, insurer, and person. The bill prohibits misleading and deceptive certificates of insurance and makes clear that a certificate of insurance is not an insurance policy. The bill also establishes that a certificate of insurance does not warrant that the insurance policy comports to contractual requirements for insurance or indemnification. The bill applies to all certificates of insurance related to property, operations, or risk located in this state, regardless of where the policyholder, insurer, insurance producer, or person requesting or requiring the issuance of a certificate of insurance is located. Any certificate issued that is not in compliance with this bill's requirements will be void. The insurance commissioner is charged with investigating persons believed to be engaging in practices prohibited by the bill. The commissioner can enforce the provisions by cease and desist orders and by civil penalties up to $1,000. Finally, the commissioner may propose rules to implement the provisions of the bill. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there members who wish to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on this question. There are 94 ayes, 4 nays, and 2 members absent not voting. A majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 4466.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, then the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Next bill on third reading.
House Bill 4477, West Virginia Mutual to Mutual Insurance Holding Company Act.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? The chair hears none and recognizes the gentleman from the 35th, Douglas Capito, to explain the bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, everybody. The House Bill 4477, known as the West Virginia Mutual to Mutual Insurance Holding Company Act, provides for the demutualization of West Virginia insurance companies. As a little bit of background and put it in context, 33 states have already enacted similar laws, including those states that are surrounding West Virginia, including Kentucky, Maryland, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. This law before you, this bill, is modeled after the law that took effect in Ohio. What is provided in this law under the reorganization, it allows the former mutual insurance company to split into two entities. The first being a mutual insurance holding company, which is a corporate entity, and which is the holding company of the second entity that is formed, which is a stock holding company, which would be a subsidiary of the holding company. What is required under the bill is that the holding company own at least 51% of the stock of its subsidiary stock holding company. The policyholder's rights in the original mutual insurance company are converted into membership rights, but I would provide everybody with the assurance that the rights of the policyholder contractually do not change, as the converted stock company remains responsible for the payment of all claims. There are several submission and procedures that must be followed properly in order for the reorganization to occur, which requires 2/3 of the mutual insurance company board of directors to approve. It also requires the plan to be reviewed and approved by the insurance commissioner. Mr. Speaker, that's a summarization of the bill. I'm happy to take questions, and I urge its passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there members who wish to speak to the passage of the bill? The gentleman of the 60th, Doug Wilson, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the gentleman please yield?
Yes, sir.
Sir, I simply don't understand the intent of the bill. I understand the effects that you laid out, but what is the actual effect to the business and to the market that would be accomplished by the passage of this bill?
It would allow insurance companies to go into the market to raise money without giving up the controlling share of the company.
Effectively, it would open the market up a little bit?
Pardon me?
Effectively, it would open the market up a little bit?
Correct. The gentleman's
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Do other members wish to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, then the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on this question. There are 98 ayes, 0 nays, and 2 members absent not voting. A majority having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 4477.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, then the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate, request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
House Bill 4502, relating to insurance adjusters.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? The chair hears no objection. The gentleman 12th, Doug Westfall, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, House Bill 4502's request to the Insurance Commissioner is relating to insurance adjusters. The purpose is to update the requirements for insurance adjusters to become licensed and maintain license in the state. The bill addresses insurance adjusters, defines terms, prohibit adjusters from representing insured and insurers on the same claim, provides the licensure requirement for company, independent, and public adjusters, provides exceptions to adjusters' license requirement, permitting temporary license for emergency company and independent adjusters, provides for qualification for residence adjusters' license, authorizes the insurance commissioner to conduct criminal history check for prospective adjusters, provides for the adjuster's line of authority, provides for civil penalty against adjusters, requires adjusters to complete continuing education, adds new license requirements for independent and public adjusters, limits public adjusters to property and casualty, while independent and company adjusters may cover workers' comp and crop insurance also, establishes $25 annual fee for individual and $200 for business entity adjuster license, allows the commissioner to verify non-resident adjuster's license, allows the commissioner to place on probation, suspend, revoke, refuse to issue a new or levy penalties against licensed adjusters for 13 categories for misuse, establish continued education requirement for licensed adjusters, sets an effective date of July 1st, 2021 for the amendments set forth in this bill. That's the bill, Mr. Speaker, and I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Do members wish to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, then those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 93 ayes, 5 nays, and 2 members absent not voting. A majority having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 4502.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, then the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action to the House and the Senate. Request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
House Bill 4515, relating to wildlife resources, eligibility for license or permit application.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? The chair hears no objection and recognizes the lady from the 52nd, Douglas Seipold, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 4515, relating to wildlife resources and the eligibility for license or permit application. The Code 2230 currently provides that any person who applies for any class of license must state that they're eligible and have satisfied all requirements for that class of license, and provides that it is unlawful for a person to make a false statement when applying for any license. This bill simply adds the language to the code to clarify that the requirements of the foregoing code section also applies to applications for permits. Mr. Speaker, I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there members who wish to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, then those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 97 ayes, 1 nay, and 2 members absent not voting. A majority having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 4515.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, then the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action to the House and the Senate. Request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
House Bill 4585, providing immunity from civil or criminal liability for making good faith reports of suspected or known instances of child abuse or neglect.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? The chair hears no objection and recognizes the gentleman of the 27th, Douglas Schott, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill explicitly provides immunity from civil or criminal liability for individuals providing information or assistance, including medical evaluations or consultations, in connection with a report, investigation, or legal intervention pursuant to a good faith report of child abuse or neglect. The proposed code would extend immunity to individuals making, first, good faith reports of suspected or known instances of child abuse or neglect, or otherwise providing information or assistance which could include medical evaluations or consultations in connection with a report, investigation, or legal intervention pursuant to a good faith report of child abuse or neglect. Mr. Speaker, that's a summary of the bill. I urge its passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? The lady from the 49th, Douglas Summers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the chairman yield?
Chairman does yield.
Yes.
Is there a legal definition of good faith?
Not to my knowledge. I think it just depends on the facts and circumstances.
So if you did find that someone made a report that had other reasons, just to get someone in trouble or something of that nature, then that would prove out and there would be other charges for that? Or
there could be, although if it's in good faith, then that would be a determination that would have to be made based on those circumstances. Obviously, if it could be shown that the motive was improper, and in other words, according to your scenario, somebody just wanted to harass somebody, that's clearly not in good faith. There would be no immunity from either civil or criminal liability in that case.
Okay, thank you.
The gentleman of the 29th, Douglas Steele.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise against this bill again. Here we are, second bill this session, where we're providing immunity from criminal liability. Criminal liability. That means someone has committed a crime and we are providing them immunity from it. That means they have caused harm to another individual in violation of West Virginia law, and we're saying that they can't be held accountable for it because of their position. I personally don't feel that anybody needs criminal immunity. The way that we are provided our guarantees against being charged with a crime when we shouldn't be are contained in the 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendment. You have a right to confront your accusers. You have a right to due process of law. You have a right to not have to be secure in your persons and property. You have the right to not incriminate yourself. You have a right to be tried by a jury of your peers. But what we're saying here is that in the instance where a crime is committed and a victim exists and there's been a wrong under the law, we won't solve it. We won't utilize that process. This is the second agency that has come to this legislature seeking to absolve itself from criminal liability. And while you all stare at your papers and ignore what I'm saying, you're going to hit a green button. And what you're telling your people back home, I guarantee you, I know that 100% of the people in this room at some given point in time, while they were campaigning, said, I'm going up there and I'm going to clean up Charleston. Well, guess what? You're not. You're giving it criminal immunity. Good job. Good job. You told everybody back home you were going to clean up Charleston. You were going to hold government accountable. You gave them a blank check. You gave them a get-out-of-jail-free card with this bill. There is no reason on the face of the planet that any person in this building or outside of this building in the employ of the government should be immune from criminal prosecution for any reason whatsoever. We are all afforded, by voting for this bill and saying that these people need criminal immunity, you're saying that you don't believe in the United States Constitution or the Bill of Rights. You're saying you don't trust our court system. You're saying you don't trust what we have built a foundation on for nearly 250 years. A system of due process and fairness that treats all men equal, regardless of their station. You're saying that you don't believe in it. You're saying that it doesn't work, and we need to protect ourselves. We need to protect ourselves. We don't. We're already protected. We are already protected. DHHR brought this bill to us and said, we just need to do it. We just need to do it. We don't need to do it. And if you believe in the 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments, if you believe in due process, you believe that this state gives fair trials to criminal defendants, you'll vote red on this bill. If you believe in holding government accountable, as you told your constituents you would, you'll vote red on this bill. It's unnecessary. You don't need it. We need to quit handing out criminal immunity around here. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Lady to the 50th, Doug Longstreth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the Chair of Judiciary rise for a question, please?
Chairman does yield.
Yes, of course.
Would you explain again on this bill? I'm reading this bill as if I seen someone maybe abusing a child and I reported it, I would be immune from any kind of liability. Am I reading this wrong?
You would be if your report was in good faith. And as I said to the majority leader, if you have an improper motive that can be demonstrated or shown, you would not get immunity. We're certainly not excusing murder or rape or anything like this. This is very limited. I was concerned that we were talking about the same bill, the gentleman from the 29th and I. We're really talking about a bill that's basically intended to encourage people to report incidences of abuse that they think and not be chilled by any fear of being prosecuted for, if it turns out that the report is incorrect, of being prosecuted criminally for making a wrong report to the law enforcement. So it's a very limited bill, but it has a motive to try to encourage people to report suspected child abuse.
So it would be followed up. If I reported something, they would follow up to see if I was doing it in a criminal manner or if I was doing it in good faith. Is that correct?
Well, let's suppose you made a report to a law enforcement official and it turned out to be wrong, but it was made in good faith. You saw a child that had been battered and bruised. It turns out you reported it because you were concerned about the child and perhaps there were other circumstances that caused you to believe that maybe the child was abused. Turns out the child had wrecked on a bicycle, let's say. It would be the information you gave that the child might be abused turned out to be wrong, but you made that report in good faith with every intention of trying to protect that child. Then then this bill would provide you immunity in that case.
And this wouldn't this bill would not keep them from wanting to report, afraid that they're going to be arrested. Like if I wanted to report something, I wouldn't want to be afraid to be arrested for it.
No, it wouldn't. It was intended not to be chilling, but to basically encourage people to make reports if they reasonably suspect some child abuse.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you very much.
The gentleman the 17th, Dr. Rohrbach.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the Chair of Judiciary yield for a very quick question?
Certainly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I'm understanding this correctly, there's absolutely nothing that confers any lesser penalty or level of immunity on the accused abuser or the allegedly abused confuser. This is strictly on the reporter, be they a required reporter or a good citizen reporter.
Yes, it extends immunity to the person who makes the report, not the target of the report.
Yeah, and we do have under West Virginia Code certain individuals that by code have to report. Is that correct? I mean, we have required reporters.
There are mandatory reporters. That is correct.
Yeah. So,
and your profession is one of them.
That is correct. And when we're schooled, that we are required reporters. So this strictly, if you're acting in good faith, all this does is confer a level of immunity on the reporter, but does nothing to put any lesser burden on law enforcement to prove that the statement of allegation is true in regards to the abuser.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman the 55th, Dr. Spinagle.
Will the chairman yield just for a couple questions?
Yes.
So it's my understanding, normally where I have seen this in my practice of law is typically you'll have parents that are separated and they're wanting to go back into the family court, and one will make call after call after call after call to CPS saying one parent's doing something to the child, which later comes out not to be true, but they're harassing the individual. It's my understanding, and I went up to the judiciary, there are criminal actions on the books for that type of conduct, and also you can change, not in the best interest of the children, you can change custody as a result of it. But it's all factual based, and all you're attempting to do on this, because that's a good faith. Obviously, the fact pattern that I'm putting forth there would be bad faith for an alternative motive. Does that sort of comply with everything that you're trying to do with this act or bill?
Yes, and let me just amplify on that. The law is basically adding some further clarification to a current provision of the law. The law, if we don't pass this bill, is going to read as follows. Any person, official, or institution participating in good faith in any act permitted or required by this article, and we're talking about mandatory reporters or others, is immune. Well, I think the word now is are, but it becomes is if the bill is passed, immune from any civil or criminal liability that otherwise might result by reason of those actions. And all this bill does is to attempt to amplify that by saying including individuals making good faith reports of suspected or known child abuse, and then those who might be involved in the medical examinations and so forth. So the law already confers immunity from civil or criminal prosecution.
So in
this
essence,
just expands or clarifies the extent of it.
So it's an affirmative defense. You got immunity, you're asserting that if you get sued saying, I got this, then the question always turns on whether it was good faith or bad faith.
Correct.
Speaking.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
The gentleman the 60th, Dr. Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the chairman please yield, sir?
Of course.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Is there a presumption of good faith when someone makes a report of abuse?
There's certainly not a statutory presumption. No.
Yes, sir. Well, it seems to me that there will be if we pass this, and not only that, to use your term, sir, to amplify it for certain classes of people. Is that a fair reading of this?
I would not interpret this as a presumption. Yeah, certainly you could interpret it as a presumption, but it certainly isn't spelled out in any any legal terminology. It certainly doesn't say they're presumed to have acted in good faith. They actually would have to establish good faith, I think, if there was any effort to try to impose civil or criminal liability.
Yes, sir. So if someone accuses someone else of a crime, and in the investigation of the alleged crime, there's found no evidence of the crime at all, is there any presumption of bad faith in the report?
I think there's neither a presumption of good faith nor bad faith. There's no legal presumption contained in the statute.
Okay. So not including this particular section of code, just generally speaking about the way the world works, were someone to report what they believe to be a crime, do they need protection?
My understanding is there is a criminal penalty for providing inaccurate information to law enforcement.
Yes, sir. So there's a criminal.
I can't cite you to the provision, but I think there is that.
I understand, sir. Thank you. So, were someone to make a false report?
I'm sorry, what?
Were someone to make a false report, would there need to be a complaint about that false report for that person to be held accountable?
Well, I think in either civil or criminal liability, there will have to be somebody that takes action in response to the report. It could be a prosecutor if a complaint is made with the prosecutor following an investigation, or it could be a civil lawsuit, if someone sought civil liability as a result of any damages they might have sustained from that,
yes, sir,
that complaint.
So given that complaint, would the accused person, the person accused of making a false report, be given the opportunity to defend him or herself?
Sure. Certainly.
Okay. So effectively, there's no real need for presumed innocence in any case.
Well, of course, in every criminal case, the accused is presumed innocent. So
yes, sir. Exactly. So do we need amplified presumed innocence for anyone?
Do we need to amplify that? I think apparently there is a need for that. Apparently there.
Well, I understand there's a call for it, apparently. I just don't believe there's a need for it, sir. I really appreciate your time. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman, the 14th, Doug Butler.
Speaker, would the chairman yield for one more question, please, or one question for me anyway?
Certainly.
Who determines good faith in this instance?
Well, it would be asserted if there was a complaint filed against the person who took the action to report the child abuse. Then it would be a defense that you would say, you know, well, first of all, let's take the criminal situation. Normally there'd be an investigation by law enforcement. If you were the victim of that complaint, you were the accused in that complaint of child abuse, and it turns out there was no merit to that, and then you went to law enforcement and said, this was a complaint made in bad faith, I think this person ought to be prosecuted. In all likelihood, the prosecuting attorney would conduct some investigation and make a preliminary determination where they think he could prove that the person acted in bad faith. If they brought the charge, then the person that's accused would obviously have the ability to prove to a jury that they acted in good faith. It would become a defense at that point to the allegation or the charge against that person.
Okay, well, it sounds like if we pass this, though, someone is actually presuming or making the determination that this person acted in good faith before the prosecutor or maybe even the civil attorney, the attorney that somebody would hire for a civil case. Someone is making that determination before it can even get to that step. Is that correct?
In the criminal case, I assume, and I haven't prosecuted, I used to prosecute a little bit, but it's probably been 20 years ago or more, maybe more. Anyway, normally the prosecutor would want to do some investigation and make a preliminary determination whether there was good faith or not, or whether, even more importantly, he could prove that there wasn't good faith in an effort to bring that person to accountable for a jury for a crime.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Do other members wish to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, then the gentleman, the 27th, Doug Schott, to close debate on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think this has been, a lot has been made out of this bill. It's basically a refinement or amplification of the current law. There's already a civil and criminal immunity for anybody who's acting in good faith regarding reports of abuse of children. And this is just an effort to clarify that this also extends not only to good faith reports, but to those who provide assistance, such as a medical evaluation or a consultation, in connection with one of those reports. So we're not starting down a new path here, folks. We are clarifying how far this protection extends, but this is not a get-out-of-jail-free card as it's been described. This is simply existing law with some clarification in hopes of removing any impediments to reporting abuses of children. I urge its passage.
For what purpose does the gentleman of the 29th, Douglas Steele, seek recognition?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like a ruling under Rule 49. It appears I'll be voting to give myself criminal immunity.
That would not be a financial implication as contemplated under Rule 49. The gentleman would be directed to vote. The question before the House is the passage of the bill. Shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On the question, there are 69 ayes, 29 nays, and 2 members absent not voting. A majority having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 4585.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, then the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action to the House, to the Senate, request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
House Bill 4607, authorizing the operation of mobile shops for hair, nail, cosmetology, and aesthetic services.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? The chair hears no objection and recognizes the gentleman of 56, Douglas Howell, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of this bill is to authorize the registration and operation of mobile shops providing esthetician, barber, barber crossover, barber permanent wavis, cosmetologist, cosmetologist crossover, hairstylist, or nail technician services to the public. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Do members wish to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, then those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 94 ayes, 4 nays, and 2 members absent not voting. A majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 4607.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, then the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action to the House, to the Senate, request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
House Bill 4664, clarifying the offense of driving under the influence of alcohol, controlled substances, or drugs.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? The chair hears no objection and recognizes the gentleman of the 27th, Douglas Schott, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For many years, following the 1980 decision of our state Supreme Court in State versus Ball, West Virginia's DUI law was not construed to operate upon individuals who are operating a vehicle while under the influence if those individuals were on strictly private property. This did not, as a matter of statute, include private property generally open to the public. However, in 2012, the Supreme Court, in the case of Reed versus Beckett, determined that our DUI statute extends the reach of our driving under the influence laws to any individual driving a vehicle within the physical boundaries of West Virginia, even if the vehicle is driven only upon private property not open to the general public. Last year's bill placed in code language which clarifies this application to read that a DUI can be statutorily enforced against individuals operating a vehicle upon the roads of this state and not where the operator or driver is operating the vehicle on his or her own property. Unfortunately, this ran afoul of the federal government, which threatened the withdrawal of several $1 million of federal highway funds due to a lack of clarity regarding the definition of private property. The bill before you adds language that clarifies that DUIs causing injury to others may be assessed anywhere in the state, while those that do not may only be assessed against individuals operating a vehicle upon a public highway or private road. Additionally, it notes that persons operating a vehicle on their private property solely and exclusively in an area which is not open to the use of the public for purposes of vehicular travel is not considered a private road. I should mention that a good bit of discussion took place between the DMV and staff counsel for the judiciary in order to come up with this language, which DMV believes will restore any or correct any problem with the federal government and not result in any loss of federal highway funds. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I urge adoption or passage of the bill.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Do members wish to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, then the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On the question, there are 88 ayes, 10 nays, and 2 members absent not voting. A majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 4664.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, then the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the acts to the House, the Senate, request concurrence therein. Are there further bills on third reading? If not, then bills on second reading.
House Bill 2527 relating to forgery and other crimes concerning lottery tickets.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4003 relating to telehealth insurance requirements.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4061, Health Benefit Plan Network Access and Adequacy Act.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
House Bill 4582, declaring certain claims against agencies of the state to be moral obligations of the state.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4611, relating to fireworks.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
House Bill 4618, relating to deadly weapons for sale or hire.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
House Bill 4661, relating to the powers of the Public Service Commission and the regulation of natural gas utilities.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
House Bill 4691, relating to employment in areas of critical need in public education.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced. Are there further bills on second reading? If not, bills on first reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 364, authorizing the Department of Transportation to promulgate legislative rules.
The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4069, West Virginia Student Religious Liberties Act.
The bill will be advanced.
House Bill 4455.
Slated the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I move the bill be postponed one day.
The lady from the 49th moves that House Bill 4455 be postponed one day. Those in favor of the motion will please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. House Bill 4455 is postponed one day. Are there further bills on first reading? If not, leaves of absence. Lady from the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, for our colleagues, Delegate Ellington and E. Step Burton.
Are there objections to leave being granted? Chair hears no objections and leave shall be granted. Remarks by members? Remarks by members. The gentleman at 26, Douglas Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a very quick update on our problems down south. First of all, I want to recognize the fact that McDowell County was the only county flooded. Raleigh, Wyoming, Mingo, Summers to some degree had their issues. But our water, for the most part, has gone down. We still have a lot of debris that has to be cleaned up. Major roads are open. Some of the secondary roads are still down. The first responder community has just been incredible. And I just like to publicly make a few thanks, Mr. Speaker, with your indulgence there. First of all, the 911 officials in McDowell County and the statewide, they have a conference call a couple times a day, and I participated in those, and they just dispatch people where they need them to be. Just incredible response by our state, and I thank all of the officials. There's more to come. We still need a lot of cleanup help, and I've been given many promises from the state, and I certainly hope that they will honor those promises. The sheriff and his deputies did an incredible job down our way. The city police forces and the city volunteer fire departments, especially those in Welch, that work so diligently to keep Route 52 open and access to Welch Community Hospital for I don't know, a period of time, maybe 12 hours. We did not have access from one side of town to the hospital, and that's when the ambulance departments kicked in, and they made sure that they had ambulances strategically placed so that they could get people to the Bluefield or Princeton area if that need arose. So I want to thank all of those people. Finally, the state police, the National Guard, and then, Mr. Speaker, those private citizens that stepped up. They're not a member of a volunteer fire department. They're not trained to do something, but, out of the goodness of their hearts, they stepped up and they did what had to be done. We're not out of this. We have a lot to clean up to do. We've, unfortunately, are expecting a couple of inches of rain starting on Monday. So hopefully the saturated ground will drain quite a bit before that happens. Thank you to my dear friend Delegate Kelly for your prayers. You literally calm the waters, and we do so much thank you for that. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much.
The gentleman, the 28th, Delegate Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As my friend from McDowell County expresses, water became a big deal yesterday, and the destructive nature of water permeates this entire state. However, when I came to work this morning, as all of you noticed, the wonderful Kanawha River was not about to come out of its banks. And there's a reason for that. And that reason is up in my home county. It's called the Bluestone Dam. After the flood of 1916, we decided, or our president decided, to commission the building of the Bluestone Dam, which held back or holds back 10 miles of water so this valley does not flood. We have two other dams that also do a similar function, although they don't hold back quite as much water, and that's the dam at Sutton and Summersville. However, we can faithfully say that when we come to work here in Charleston, we're not going to be flooded by the Kanawha anymore, unless there's a catastrophic event like we've never anticipated. But that did not come free. Nothing is free. The county I represent gave up 50% of its farmland so that could happen. 50% of our best farmland is underwater so Kanawha County and so the Kanawha Valley can live without fear of a giant or massive flood rushing through in the middle of the night. And so when I stand up here and talk up and speak up and maybe even get a little bit emotional about something coming back to Summers County, I want you to all know that Summers County has already give half of all they have. They have given half of their farmland so that this valley does not flood. So if I become emotional and a little bit pushy for Summers County, that's where it's coming from. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman, the 18th, Delegate Worrell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, Friday, February 7th, is Wear Red for Women Day. Now, I'm not fashionable enough to have a red suit to wear, so I just wore a red tie. But I did want to bring some awareness that heart disease is the actual #1 killer of all women, more than all forms of cancer in the U.S. As a matter of fact, 3 years ago, over 300,000 women in the United States died from cardiovascular disease. And so from somebody who has a mother-in-law who has battled with this disease for over 20 years, obviously a wife, 3 daughters, I wanted just to bring awareness to this body. Over 80% of the cardiovascular disease is preventable. And so I would just like to bring some awareness to you all to take care of yourselves and to inform your mothers, your spouses, your children about this day. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman, the 60th, Delegate Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to invite support from all of my friends who are in all of the caucuses in this House. I've got a couple of slots remaining on a couple of my bills here that I think should be very popular here in the land of the free, West by God, Virginia. One is House Bill 2031, permitting persons who have been issued state licenses to carry concealed deadly weapons on the grounds of the State Capitol Complex, commonly known as Capitol Carry. The second is House Bill 2032, permitting the carry of concealed weapons on the campus of a state institution of higher education, commonly known as Campus Carry. I look forward to your support. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman the 37th, Doug Pushkin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As an appreciative resident of Charleston and as one who resides just a block and a half away from the Kanawha River, I would ask unanimous consent that the remarks from the gentleman from the 28th be recorded in the appendix of the journal.
Further objections? Chair hears no objection. Are there further remarks? Introduction of the gentleman the 50th, Doug Caputo.
Ask unanimous consent that the remarks from my friend from McDowell be printed in the appendix of the journal, and also my friend from the 18th.
Are there objections? Chair hears no objection. Introduction of guests. The gentleman the 36th, Doug Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to introduce my adopted Fraser Singleton intern, Tatiana. She's worked hard for us all week, and if the House would show their appreciation.
Further introductions. Any miscellaneous business to come before the House? The gentleman the 30th, Doug Bates.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To end the week on a very positive note, we have our basketball silent auction that's been ongoing, and I'm pleased to announce to the body in the amount of $550 that the winner of that is, in fact, our Speaker, the gentleman from Clay. So. So if the pro tem would take the podium, I'll present the basketball, and then he can give me the check.
Okay.
And if he doesn't have his checkbook with him, then we'll do that come Monday.
Well, we have it next door if you'd like to wait.
I know where you live at least half the time, which is back
Okay.
there. So we're good. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Other miscellaneous business today? If not, then lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move subject to announcements, the House adjourn until 11 a.m. on Monday.
The question before the House is the motion that the House stand adjourned until 11 a.m. on Monday, subject to announcements. Are there announcements? The lady from the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Rules will meet at 10:45 on Monday behind the chamber.
The gentleman the 66th, Doug Espinoza.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Final announcement with regard to bill introductions. Bill introduction deadline is this Tuesday. You will need to have all signed bills into bill drafting pre-approved by close of business today. Thank you.
The gentleman the 28th, Doug Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Agriculture and Natural Resources will meet Monday at 1 p.m. in the Judiciary Committee room, and the agenda is posted. Thank you.
The gentleman the 35th, Doug Capito.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 3 announcements. The Judiciary Committee will continue its posted agenda in the committee room immediately following the floor session, where we will also be continuing to eat donuts in honor of the gentleman from the 48th's birthday. On Monday at 8:30 in this chamber, we will have a public hearing regarding House Bill 4615, which is known as the West Virginia Critical Infrastructure Protection Act. 8:30 Monday morning in this chamber. And then at 9:30 on Monday morning, the Committee on the Judiciary will meet in the committee room, and the agenda for that meeting will be posted. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from the 13th, Doug Higginbotham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Education will be meeting on Monday, February 10th at 10 a.m. in the Education Committee room. The agenda is posted.
The gentleman from the 45th, Doug Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Government Organization will reconvene Monday morning, Friday the 10th at 9 a.m. in the Government Organization Committee room.
Monday.
Yeah, Monday morning. And, Mr. Speaker, your Republican members of your Committee on Government Organization will caucus in the Chairman's office Monday, February 10th at 3 p.m. And, Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Government Organization will meet at 4 p.m. on Monday, February 10th in the House Government Organization Committee room. The agenda will be posted. Thank you.
The gentleman the 22nd, Doug Jeffries.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Monday,
February 10th, 9:30 to 10:30 a.m., the West Virginia Smoke-Free Association would like to invite all legislators to room 252 in the McManus room. Thank you.
The gentleman, the 32nd, Doug Fast.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Congressional Prayer Caucus will meet Monday at 9 a.m. in the McManus room. Thank you.
The gentleman, the 16th, Doug Linville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Subcommittee A of the Technology and Infrastructure Committee will meet in the Government Organization Room immediately following the chamber that is on honorary road and bridge namings. Thank you.
The gentleman, the 12th, Doug Westfall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Banking and Insurance will meet Monday, February 10th at 1 o'clock a.m. in the Government Organization Room. The agenda will be posted. How about p.m.?
The gentleman, the 28th, Doug Pack.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm certain to the delight of my Republican colleagues, Republicans will caucus here in the chamber immediately upon our adjournment. Briefly. Very, very briefly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Are there other announcements? If not, then the question before the House is the motion that the House stand adjourned at 11 a.m. on Monday. Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. The House is adjourned at 11 a.m. on Monday.
The Senate will please come to order. The Senate will please come to order. All those not having privileges of the floor will please vacate the chambers. And with those on the floor and our guests in the gallery, please rise as we are led in prayer this morning by Pastor Bill Tansey. He's in Charleston, West Virginia. And then please remain standing as we are led in the pledge this morning by the senator from Greenbrier County, Pastor Tansey.
Let us pray. Almighty God in heaven, today we seek your presence at this hall. We're reminded, Lord, that your loving kindnesses never cease and your compassions never fail. They're new every your presence at this hall. We're reminded, Lord, that your loving kindnesses never cease and your compassions never fail. They're new every morning, and your faithfulness is great. So may we today, Lord, never forget that in the midst of the assembly, you tell. So may we today, Lord, never forget that in the midst of the assembly, you tell us you are there. So you, O God, who removes and establishes leaders and kings, we seek, Lord God, your presence. So you, O God, who removes and establishes leaders and kings, we seek, Lord God, your presence. We pray your blessing on this. Pray your blessing on this assembly. We pray, Lord God, that you will continue to bless our great state. Thank you, God. I believe that we pray, Lord God, that you will continue to bless our great state. Thank you, God. I believe that it was through your providence that these freedom-loving people called West Virginia became a state. Bless these senators, Lord. Give them wisdom. Allow them loving people called West Virginia became a state. Bless these senators, Lord. Give them wisdom. Allow them, Lord God, to desert any pettiness and hold true to their hearts the good for our state and our people. We pray in the name of any pettiness and hold true to their hearts the good for our state and our people. We pray in the name of our Savior. Amen. Of our Savior. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Tansey. The senator from Greenbrier County.
Will you all please join in the pledge? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good job.
Thank you. You may be seated. Reading of the journal.
West Virginia Legislature, Senate Journal, February 6th, 2020. The Senate met at 11:07 a.m. Senator Carmichael, Mr. President.
The senator from Monroe County requests unanimous consent that further reading of the journal be dispensed with and that it be approved as having been read. Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. Introduction of guests. On behalf of the Senate, it is my pleasure to welcome our honorary pages for the day. Please stand and be recognized when your name is called. As guest of the senior senator from the 8th, we have Austin Goldizer and Joel Martin and Michael Thor. And as guest of the senior senator from the 16th, Christopher Roberts as guest of the senator from Greenbrier County, Arabella Crookshanks, and as guest of the senator from Jefferson County, Emily Sager and Sean Vateri. If they would all please rise, they're in the front of the gallery, and the Senate make them welcome. Thank you. You may be seated. The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the Senate, it's my pleasure and yours to introduce our doctor for the day. The West Virginia Academy of Family Physicians is a good friend of mine, Dr. Howard Lafferty, in the back of the chamber. If you wouldn't mind standing, let the Senate give you a warm welcome.
The senator from Jefferson County.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are honored to have a group from First Two Network here, and I just want to give a brief moment to just explain. This is an excellent group that is helping to bring first-generation students to make it through college, and especially for those who are first generation and in the STEM fields, which we need so much. So, here, on behalf of First Two Network, we have from West Virginia State University, Maya Walker, Fatima Irfan, Dr. Mike Foltz. We have from Marshall University, and you may stand up when I say your name, Alicia Joseph, Ethan Andres, Lydia Peterson, Coy Smith, Hannah Carrion, and Dr. Mike Norton. From Fairmont, Sarah Starkovich, Shannon Knowlton, Dr. Erica Harvey. From WVU, Hannah Petronek, Dr. Michelle Richards-Babb. From High Rocks, Sarah Riley, Samantha Mitchell. From Pocahontas County School, Joanna Burt Kinderman. And from HEPC, we have Dr. Juliana Serafin. Will the Senate please make them feel welcome?
Thank you. The junior senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Here in the North Gallery today, we have, and I don't have all their names, but we have people from all across the state with the Citizens Defense League. If you could please stand and have the Senate recognize you, please make them welcome.
The senator from Greenbrier County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Here with our page today are her mom and grandma. If Monica Crookshanks and Sharon Holliday would please stand so the Senate could make you feel welcome.
The senior senator from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. President. With some of our pages we have here today, we got some parents that are with them. I'd ask them to stand when I mention their name. Alan and Pam Thorpe, Jennifer Goldeisen, and Janella Slate. If they would stand and the Senate make them welcome, please.
The senior senator from the 16th.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the junior senator from the 16th and myself, I'd like to introduce the chaperones for our page to here today. If Ralph and Sarah Roberts, the grandparents of Christopher Roberts, who is here representing Harpers Ferry Middle School in Jefferson County, if they'd stand and receive a warm Senate welcome.
The senator from Jefferson County?
Yes, and on the behalf of the senior senator from the 16th, we have a few more chaperones that came with our pages. On behalf of Sean, we have Melissa Vittori, and bringing Emily Sager was Greg Saber. Will the Senate please make them feel welcome?
Further introductions. The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate stand a brief recess for the purpose of hearing from one of our Fraser Singleton interns, Matt Potter, who is a sophomore at West Virginia University.
Junior senator from the 17th moves us to Senate stand in brief recess to hear an address from our Fraser Singleton interns. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the Senate in recess to hear an address from our Fraser Singleton intern.
Hi, thank you all today. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Matt Porter, and I am from Wheeling, West Virginia, and I am a proud graduate of Wheeling Park High School. I am the son of a teacher and a self-employed contractor. Coming from a blue-collar family, I owe them my work ethic. Because of that work ethic that they instilled into me, I am currently standing in front of you as a sophomore political science major from West Virginia University. Through West Virginia University, I heard about the Fraser Singleton internship and thought to apply. I'm glad I did because this week has been one of the best weeks of my life. In the short period of time, I have learned more than what I expected to. I have to say thank you to Senator Rucker, for whom I was placed, as she had made me feel welcomed and a part of her team. I would also like to thank Senator Weld for speaking to all the interns this week. And I would also like to thank Senator Ehlenfeld as he took his time out of his day just to talk to me. Throughout this week, I sat on many committees and many floor sessions learning the legislative process, and I cannot thank you all more for giving me and the other interns the chance to take part in this program. I speak on the behalf of myself and the other interns by saying that this week has meant so much to us, and I would like to thank you all for letting us be a part of this great chamber and group of people. Thank you all, and I hope to have time again with you when I come back one day. Thank you all.
Thank you. Senate will please come to order. Senate will please come to order. Thank you for those remarks. Communications from the House.
The Clerk of the House announced the passage by that body of committee substitute for House Bill 4352, removing the use of post-criminal conduct in professional and occupational initial licensure or certification and decision-making.
Message will be received and referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
House Bill 4380, updating the Regulatory Board review schedule.
Message be received and referred to Committee on Government Organization.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4509, transferring the Parole Board to the Division of Corrections and Rehabilitation for purposes of administrative and other support.
Message will be received and referred to the Committee on the Judiciary. Are there further communications from the House?
No, sir.
Communications from the Executive?
There are none.
Reports from standing committees.
Your Committee on Education has had under consideration Senate Bill 38, requiring schools provide elective course on Hebrew Scriptures or Bible, and reports back to Committee Substitute for same, with the recommendation that the Committee Substitute do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary. Respectfully submitted, Patricia Puertas Rucker, Chair.
Report will be received under the original committee reference, be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration Senate Bill 163, relating to municipal or county taxation of hotel rooms booked through Marketplace Facilitator, and reports back to Committee Substitute for same, with the recommendation that the Committee Substitute do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on Finance. Respectfully submitted, Mark R. Maynard, Chair.
Report will be received. The Senior Senator from the 15th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent to second reference to the Committee of Finance be dispensed with. This bill is revenue neutral.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration Senate Bill 180 relating to Second Chance Driver's License Program and Senate Bill 545 authorizing transfer of monies from Insurance Commission Fund to Workers' Compensation Old Fund, and reports the same back with the recommendation that they each do pass. Respectfully submitted, Craig Blair, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Education has had under consideration Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 230, requiring State Board of Education provide routine education and suicide prevention, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass. Respectfully submitted, Patricia Puertas Rucker, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Banking and Insurance has had under consideration Senate Bill 284, creating West Virginia Healthcare Continuity Act, and reports back to Committee Substitute for same, with the recommendation that the Committee Substitute do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on Health and Human Resources. Respectfully submitted, Michael T. Azinger, Chair.
Report will be received. Under the bill's original double committee reference, be referred to the Committee on Health and Human Resources.
Your Committee on Economic Development has had under consideration Senate Bill 478, creating West Virginia Motorsports Entertainment Complex Investment Act, and reports back to Committee Substitute for same, with the recommendation the Committee Substitute do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on Finance. Respectfully submitted, Chandler Swope, Chair.
Report will be received. Under the bill's original double committee reference, be referred to Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration committee substitute for Senate Bill 490 relating to protection of animal and crop facilities, and reports back a committee substitute for same with the recommendation committee substitute for committee substitute do pass. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration Senate Bill 571, expiring funds from State Excess Lottery Revenue Fund to various accounts, and reports back a committee substitute for same with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass. Respectfully submitted, Craig Blair, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Energy, Industry, and Mining has had under consideration Senate Bill 583, creating program to further development of renewable energy resources, and reports back a committee substitute for same with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on Finance. Respectfully submitted, Randy E. Smith, Chair.
Report will be received. A senior senator from the 15th.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that second reference to the Committee of Finance be dispensed. This bill is also revenue neutral.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered.
Your Committee on Health and Human Resources has had under consideration Senate Bill 641, allowing West Virginia CHIP flexibility and rate setting, Senate Bill 647, permitting physician assistants and advanced practice registered nurses issue do not resuscitate orders, and Senate Bill 664, adding physician's assistant to list of medical professionals capable of determining if individual lacks capacity, and reports the same back with the recommendation that they each do pass. Respectfully submitted, Michael J. Maroney, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Bill 653, increasing number of magistrates in Putnam County, and reports back a committee substitute for same with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on Finance. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received. Under the bill's original double committee reference, be referred to Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on Energy, Industry, and Mining has had under consideration Senate Bill 655 relating to valuation of natural resources land property, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on Finance. Respectfully submitted, Randy E. Smith, Chair.
Report will be received. Under the original double committee reference, be referred to Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Bill 662, removing restrictions on fiduciary commissioners, and reports back a committee substitute for same with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration Senate Bill 674, permitting DOH purchase hardware items and equipment from local seller, and reports back a committee substitute for same with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass. Respectfully submitted, Mark R. Maynard, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2602, including possession of known stolen property and the offense of receiving or transferring stolen property, and has amended same, and reports the same back with recommendation that it do pass as amended. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2924, permitting the West Virginia Tourism Office to decide to contract with the Division of Highways to sell advertising space on the WV 511 website, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass. Respectfully submitted, Mark R. Maynard, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration engrossed House Bill 4141, requiring the Department of Administration to publish its comprehensive annual financial report by the end of December, and has amended same, and reports the same back with a recommendation that it do pass as amended. Respectfully submitted, Mark R. Maynard, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration engrossed House Bill 4179, recognition of emergency medical services personnel licensure interstate compact, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received.
That's all I have, sir.
Reports from select committees.
Your Select Committee on Children and Families has had under consideration Senate Bill 312 relating to child protective caseworkers and reports back to Committee Substitute for same with the recommendation Committee Substitute do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on Health and Human Resources. Respectfully submitted, Tom Takubo, Chair.
Report will be received. Under the original double committee reference, be referred to Committee on Health and Human Resources.
Your Select Committee on Children and Families has had under consideration and engrossed Committee Substitute for House Bill 4129 relating to adoption and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass. Respectfully submitted, Tom Takubo, Chair.
Report will be received.
That's all I have, sir.
Introduction of bills. The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that Senate Bills 726 through 737 be considered and introduced, read by their titles, and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the chamber automation system.
Junior senator from the 17th requests unanimous consent that Senate Bill number 726 through Senate Bill number 737 be considered introduced, read by their titles, and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the chamber automation system. Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. Resolutions.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 27 by Senators Boley, Carmichael, Mr. President, Azinger, Baldwin, Beach, Blair, Clements, Klein, Facemeyer, Hamilton, Hardesty, Ehlenfeld, Jeffries, Lindsay, Mann, Maroney, Maynard, Palumbo, Pitzenbarger, Plymel, Prezioso, Roberts, Romano, Rucker, Smith, Stalling, Swope, Seipolt, Takubo, Tarr, Trump, Unger, Weld, and Wolfel, requesting study on ways to make state capitol building more handicap accessible.
Under the rules of the Senate, the resolution will lie over one day.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 28 by Senator Maynard naming the Curtis Papp and Millie Mammy Asbury Bridge.
Under the rules of the Senate, the resolution will lie over one day.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 29 by Senator Seipolt requesting DEA and USDA promulgate rule allowing state to take custody of certain cannabis plants for testing on lower THC levels in processed hemp.
Under the rules of the Senate, the resolution will lie over one day. Are there further resolutions?
No, sir.
Motions? Petitions?
There are none.
Unfinished business?
Senate Concurrent Resolution 23 requesting study of state police's increased duties and responsibilities.
Resolution will be referred to Committee on the Judiciary.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 24 naming the Fire Chief Lee Thomas Memorial Bridge.
Resolution will be referred to Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 25 requesting study on impact of future electromagnetic pulse catastrophe.
Under the rules of the Senate, resolution will be referred to Committee on Government Organization.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 26 urging U.S. Congress reopen public lands.
Resolution will be referred to Committee on Natural Resources.
Senate Resolution 34 designating February 7th, 2020 as Dental Hygienists Day.
The senator from Boone County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, and the resolution be put upon its adoption.
Senator from Boone County requests unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, the committee reference be dispensed with, and the resolution be placed upon its adoption. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Clerk will read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 34 designating February 7th, 2020 as Dental Hygienists Day at the Capitol.
Question before the Senate is adoption of the resolution. Is there discussion? The senator from Boone County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of this resolution. As many of you all know, these oral health care professionals actively promote good oral health and prevention of oral disease. This body has passed over the past 5 to 8 years bills that would allow them to better do that by practicing in schools and without direct supervision. As preventive specialists, dental hygienists contribute to the oral health of West Virginia residents and provide essential service contributing to their total health. There are some 1,412 active dental hygienists in West Virginia. These hygienists have given their time and effort to provide oral health care to individuals of need, such as children, senior citizens, individuals with low income, and individuals with disabilities. I can tell you also that therefore the bill that the majority leader has put forth and several of us have signed on to provide oral health care to adults in the Medicaid population for up to $1,000 a year. This is important for the future of our great state. So please join me in welcoming students from Bridge Valley Community and Technical College, West Liberty University, and West Virginia University in promoting good oral health. And I urge passage of the resolution.
Is there further discussion? Further discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is adoption of the resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolution adopted. The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the comments by the senator from Boone be placed in the appendix of the journal.
Without objection, so ordered. Junior senator from 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate stand in brief recess for the purpose of presenting the resolution.
Junior senator from the 17th moves that the Senate stand in brief recess for the purpose of presenting this resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the Senate in brief recess to present this resolution. Senate will please come to order. The Senate will please come to order. Are there further items under unfinished business?
No, sir.
Bills on third reading.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 136, prohibiting certain misleading lawsuit advertising practices. Third reading of the bill.
The question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 136 would create a new article in our state code, and it goes in Chapter 47, which addresses trade. The new article would be designated 28, Article 28, and it would contain a total of 5 sections relating to and regulating the prevention of deceptive lawsuit advertising and solicitation practices. And so the committee substitute has 5 sections. The first one's just the short title. The second one defines terms that are used in the act. The operative sections are Sections 3 and Sections 4 of the Act. Section 3 relates to deceptive legal advertisements, and Section 4 relates to wrongful use or disclosure of protected health information. In Section 3, the advertising section, the bill prohibits certain ads, certain types of ads, and defines them as deceptive or unfair if the ads do the following, and there's a list there. One is if it fails to say that it's a paid advertisement for legal services. The second one is if it uses such terms as consumer medical alert or health alert or consumer alert or substantially similar phrase suggesting that the ad is offering professional medical or government agency advice. If it displays a logo of a state government, federal or state government agency in a manner that suggests there's an affiliation there. Other prohibitions. The second subsection addresses disclosures that are required to be in the ads. The Senate passes a similar bill last year. Both years, Mr. President, we've had testimony from physicians who have told us that something that is happening around the country is that some of these ads are so frightening, an ad to solicit people to sign up for a lawsuit about a drug or a medicine. Some of these ads are so frightening that people have been discontinuing their medication, sometimes with lethal consequence. So such an ad is required under this bill, if it's adopted into law, to include language that says, do not stop taking a prescribed medication without first consulting your doctor. Discontinuing a prescribed medication without your doctor's advice can result in injury or death. So the advertising section here is designed to regulate the content of the ads, to require disclosures, and to prohibit deceptive activities and conduct. Section 4, as I've said, addresses the wrongful use or disclosure of protected health information for the solicitation of legal services. So we're criminalizing conduct if somebody at a hospital is selling or transferring the names of patients who have broken bones or were in car accidents and that sort of thing to lawyers or representatives for lawyers. That becomes a criminal matter. Finally, the final section of the bill, Section 5, makes it clear that nothing in the bill is designed to limit or affect or otherwise affect the authority of the judiciary or the lawyer disciplinary board to regulate the practice of law or enforce West Virginia's rules of professional conduct. But this bill, Mr. President, is a measure designed to get at some of the insidious and unprofessional advertising that I'm embarrassed and ashamed to acknowledge here occurs within the profession that I practice and hold dear. I'd be happy to try to answer questions. Otherwise, I urge the bill's passage.
Is there further discussion? Further discussion? Not, all those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question being 33 yeas, 1 nay, 0 absent and not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk has a title amendment.
Senator Trump moved to amend the title of the bill.
Question before the Senate is adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the title amendment adopted. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 138, Incentives for Consolidating Local Governments. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senior senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 138 provides a number of incentives for counties, municipalities, and metro governments to consolidate. Some of those incentives include preferences for road construction projects and the right to impose a 1% sales and use tax. Counties that consolidate would also receive a 10% discount on their regional jail bill for 10 years. Municipalities that consolidate would receive a matching payment from the state in the amount of 10% of their annual contribution to the Municipal Employee Retirement Fund for 10 years. A similar bill passed the Senate unanimously last year, and there's nothing in this bill that requires the counties or municipalities to do this. I'll entertain questions. Otherwise, I urge passage of the bill.
Is there further discussion? Further discussion? Not, all those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question being 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent and not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 142, Expanding Coyote Control Program through Voluntary Assessment on Breeding Cows. Third reading of the bill.
The question before the Senate is shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senator from Preston County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not sure what happened there. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 142 simply expands a coyote control program. You probably recall from last year where we passed the bill 33-0 to 1. Senate Bill 259 got hung up over in the House. West Virginia Code, Chapter 7, Article 7, Section 6E now provides for a mandatory $1 assessment of all breeding age sheep and goats, and that money goes into a fund which helps reduce the number of coyote through the APHIS program in a partnership with Wildlife Service and the United States Department of Agriculture. The committee substitute here expands the coyote control program to include breeding age cows, but unlike the sheep and goat program, for the cow program it is completely voluntary. Only those farmers who wish to participate would pay this fee, and if they choose to participate, then they could also receive the benefits of the coyote or predator reduction. Mr. President, I urge passage of the bill.
Is there further discussion? If not, all those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question being 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent and not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed Senate Bill 203, allowing certain deductions from personal income tax refunds. Third reading of the bill.
Question for the Senate is shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senator from Upshur County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 203 would allow deductions to be made from personal income tax refunds for purposes of providing nursing home and health care for aged and disabled veterans, and also for operation and maintenance of the Donald C. Kennard Memorial State Veteran Cemetery. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I urge approval.
Is there further discussion? If not, all those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent and not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting, having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 522 relating to compensation awards to crime victims. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? Is there discussion? The senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 522 would amend two sections of existing code. They are both in Article 2A, which is compensation and awards to victims of crime, Article 2A of Chapter 14. The sections are Section 3 and Section 14. Section 3 is the definitions section of the bill, and it changes definitions under allowable expense. It adds a line, medical care, reasonable expenses to be incurred for reasonably needed. The new language is medical care, including services, accommodations related to, and psychological care. So this bill would allow payment for counseling. Section 14 is a section addressing the grounds for denial of a claim or reductions of awards. And it provides for a limitation on the filing of an action. The new language is a proviso that requires the filing of a civil abuse and neglect petition in the circuit court satisfies the reporting requirement, allowing a minor child who is the subject of the petition to file an application for benefits with the claims process to proceed in accordance with this code. And it says that the agency filing a civil and abuse neglect petition, that's usually going to be the State Department of Health and Human Resources, shall file an application for benefits on behalf of the child. So it makes it clear that abused and neglected children are eligible for awards. It does not, I was thinking of a different bill, it does not address the statute of limitations. Mr. President, be happy to try to answer questions about this bill. Otherwise, I urge its passage.
Is there further discussion? If not, all those in favor will vote yea, those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question being 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting, having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 615, declaring certain claims against state as moral obligations of state. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senior senator from the 15th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 615 directs payments for moral obligations to the state. These claims have been approved by the West Virginia Legislative Claims Commission. Traditionally, these types of actions would be maintained in the regular courts of the state. However, the Constitution grants the state immunity from suit. These claims have been determined by the Legislative Claims Commission to be those that the state should, in equity and good conscience, discharge and pay. Mr. President, I urge passage.
Is there further discussion? If not, all those in favor will vote yea, those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question being 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting, having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
Junior senator from the 17th moves that the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this questioner being 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent, not voting, more than 2/3 of those elected having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective from passage. Clerk will communicate the action and send it to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 623, allowing non-citizen of U.S. be eligible for teaching certificate. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senator from Jefferson County.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 623 provides that non-citizens of the United States who hold a valid permanent resident card, employment authorization document, or work permit issued by the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services are eligible to be granted either a teaching certificate or an alternative program certificate, provided that all other requirements are met. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I urge passage.
Is there further discussion? Not, all those in favor will vote yea, those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? So the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question being 32 yeas, 2 nays, 0 absent, not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Junior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective from passage. On question unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
Junior Senator from the 17th requests unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question, there being 32 yeas, 2 nays, 0 absent, not voting, more than 2/3 of those elected having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective from passage. Clerk will communicate the action and send it to the House. Are there further items under third reading?
No, sir.
Bills on second reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 96, prohibiting municipalities from limiting persons' rights to possess certain weapons. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not the bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 97, allowing senior judge to continue receiving per diem compensation beyond annual salary of sitting judge due to delay by governor in filling vacancy.
The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the bill lie over one day while retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 131, creating Tim Tebow Act.
Junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the bill lie over one day while retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 195, updating powers of personal representatives of deceased persons' estates. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not the bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Senate Bill 202, allowing one member of PSD Board to be county commissioner.
Junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the bill lie over one day while retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 208, protecting consumers from unfair pricing practices during state of emergency.
Junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the bill lie over one day while retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered.
Senate Bill 266, clarifying and updating language regarding Fairmont State alumni license plates. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not the bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 275, creating Intermediate Court of Appeals. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, sir. Senator Ehlenfeld moved to amend the bill.
The senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would request unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read.
Senator from Ohio County requests unanimous consent to explain the amendments in lieu of having them read and that all amendments be considered as one. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senator may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. This amendment is relatively simple. I think you all are familiar with the bill. We've discussed it quite a bit during this session, first half of the session. It would expand the scope of the Intermediate Court of Appeals. It would expand the scope to include any criminal proceedings in this state, any juvenile proceedings in the state, child abuse and neglect proceedings, orders of commitment, and final decisions of the Public Service Commission. Mr. President, to understand why this amendment is important, I think we have to look at the reason why we have appellate courts in the first place. The reason we have appellate courts is to correct mistakes made by judges of our lower courts. Judges are human. Judges make mistakes. Back in November of 1999, Yasser Abdulhaq, who you might have seen referenced in Senate Bill 615 as someone who was owed equity of good conscience, $22.28. That same person drove to Wheeling, West Virginia with his girlfriend, and they checked into a hotel room at the Hampton Inn right down the street from where I grew up. And they stayed there overnight, and when it was time to check out, they didn't. The housekeeping staff became concerned. His girlfriend, Dana Tozer, was paralyzed from the waist down, and so there were some concerns about her and her safety and what was going on in that room. They couldn't get in, and they determined that the room had been barricaded. They called the police, and the police, out of concern for Mr. Abdelhak's girlfriend, broke into the room. And they found Mr. Abdelhak alive, but they found Dana Tozer was dead. She had been stabbed, we ultimately determined, 233 times. One of the officers who responded to that scene was John Roten, one of the best detectives I ever worked with. John Roten helped to put handcuffs on Mr. Abdelhak. He helped to collect evidence at the scene. He helped to preserve the chain of custody. He even did an inventory of the car the next day that they had traveled from Cleveland to Wheeling in. So he was a very important witness to this case. January of 2000 rolls around, and the postcards go out for grand jury service in Ohio County. And John Roten gets a postcard telling him to show up for grand jury service. And he did, as is his obligation as a citizen. And when he gets there, the prosecutor's office, for which I worked at the time in Ohio County, asked the judge to excuse Detective Roten from serving on the grand jury because he not only had investigated that case, but several others that were to be considered. And the judge refused. The judge refused to excuse this detective. And so he was on the grand jury. The grand jury returned an indictment. The case went to trial. John Roten testified at trial. The defendant was convicted, and it went to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court clearly saw the error in the judge's ways and threw out the conviction. So we had to try it again and expend all of those resources over. My point in telling you all of that is, one, the importance of appellate courts. Two, even a violent criminal like Yasser Abdelhak, who deserves every day that he's serving right now in our penitentiary system, deserves a fair shot. And he deserves not to have a grand jury that is made up of someone who arrested him and investigated him and who testified against him. So with that being said, there are many reasons why I think this amendment should be adopted by this body, but I've narrowed it down to 4, starting with number 1. When you increase the opportunities for appellate review, you are going to identify more errors. You're going to see more red flags. You're going to have more opportunity to correct mistakes like the one I just described. By allowing this intermediate court to have criminal jurisdiction, you're going to take some of the burden off of our Supreme Court of Appeals and let them focus on the weightier issues. And they can handle the issues that, not that they're not important, but perhaps not as weighty as the ones that we want them to be considering. Number 2, as proposed, I think that being a judge on the Intermediate Court of Appeals is a pretty good gig if this goes through. You'll be paid more than circuit court judges, but you're not going to have to deal with the toughest, most demanding parts of being a judge in West Virginia: criminal cases, juvenile cases, and abuse and neglect cases. We have circuit court judges who are burning out because of the dark, emotional cases they deal with day in and day out. And they'll be paid less than these Intermediate Court of Appeals judges, but not have to deal with the same type of heavy workload. And I think if we're going to pay them $130,000 a year, they ought to earn that $130,000 a year. They ought to have a full workload. And by adding these additional responsibilities, they will earn their pay on that immediate court. Number 3, as proposed, this court appears to exist for corporations and not for people. If we were to expand the subject matters that it would have jurisdiction over to things like criminal matters and commitment orders and juvenile matters, this court would truly be for all the taxpayers, for all the citizens, for all the defendants and all the prosecutors, and not just for corporations. Because I think if we're going to spend millions of dollars on this court, millions of taxpayer dollars on this court, then the taxpayers ought to have access to this court. Then the last thing, Mr. President, is this. I think if we're going to expand appellate jurisdiction to matters that concern money, that concern dollars, why in God's name would we not expand it to matters that involve one's liberty? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? The senator from Morgan County, under further discussion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition to the gentleman's amendment, principally for two reasons. One, delay. Two, cost. Now, it's interesting. Some of the people who have not been enamored with the idea of an intermediate appellate court from the beginning have articulated those as objections to the creation of the court. Some concern that there may be delays that arise as a result of additional layers of appeal. We have tried to address that in this bill. And I don't think our bill, as it lies before us now, unamended, is going to add any delays. In fact, I think in some circumstances, it may expedite the process of appeal and review through the appellate process. Why is that? Right now, we have only the West Virginia Supreme Court of Appeals. That's the only appellate court we have in the state, and it must review every single case of every species, civil cases, criminal cases, abuse and neglect cases, juvenile delinquency cases. It's the only place where those cases get reviewed and can get reviewed now. What we've done in this bill is we have tried to divide the work, or at least some of the work, some of the appellate review work. I agree wholeheartedly with the remarks by my colleague from Ohio County. It is critically important that every case get a thorough review. Every case of every kind, whether it's a criminal case, a civil case, an abuse and neglect case, that it be given a thorough appellate review. What we've done within this bill is provide that those cases, which I agree with with the senator from Ohio, are the most important cases. Criminal cases and abuse and neglect cases. I agree with him that they are the most important cases that our judiciary handles, because in the case of criminal cases, they involve the liberty of the citizens. In the case of abuse and neglect cases, they often involve the whole future life of a child. So what we do in the bill is those cases go directly to the Supreme Court of Appeals. They do not get processed through the intermediate appellate court. And an important part of that, particularly with the abuse and neglect cases, is because we don't want to delay these cases. We don't want them slowed down. It is critically important that, and our Supreme Court has said so in many cases, that you get to the answer to the question of permanency as soon as reasonably possible. All right? Children who are held in this foster care system for long, indefinite periods of time and can't be either returned or restored to their home, or put in a situation where a new family can adopt them and they can resume or have a chance at a normal, permanent placement in life. We don't want to delay that process at all. So that's why, part of the reason why, in those cases, the review goes directly to the West Virginia Supreme Court of Appeals, and is not processed through an intermediate appellate court, as the gentleman's amendment would require if this amendment were to be adopted. You know, with civil cases, I know people that litigate civil cases have said to me, well, you know, there's going to be a delay. Those cases get processed through an intermediate appellate court. I really don't think it will be, because they should get a faster review in the intermediate appellate court than they can get now in the Supreme Court. And the reason is we're dividing the appellate workload. Even though some cases would process through both levels of review, but at least with civil cases, Mr. President, cases in which there's been a judgment, the law requires the payment of interest to compensate for any delay in the processing of such a case that has a judgment through two levels of appeal. So delay is one reason. And we don't want to delay the review of child abuse and neglect cases. There's no good reason to delay the review of criminal cases. Number two, cost. We've done what we can to try to mitigate costs in this bill. all of us, both political parties, both houses, are conscious and aware that we have to be careful in our spending. We have to try to minimize the cost. You know, there is some cost, of course, associated with the creation of a new court, an intermediate appellate court. If the gentleman from Ohio's amendment is adopted, it is going to increase substantially the cost of the creation and implementation of this court. And the cost increases are not going to come within the judicial branch. The cost of the court will be the same, but the cost increases are going to come in the executive branch. Public defender services. Right now on this floor, Mr. President, we've got a supplemental appropriation we're going to have to consider for an additional $20 million. Public defender services. If those cases, if all those abuse and neglect cases and all the criminal cases are processed through 2 layers of review, an intermediate appellate court first and then the Supreme Court, as the gentleman's amendment proposes, there will have to be appointed counsel. The vast majority of these cases, the vast majority, are cases where the lawyers for the defendants in the criminal cases are being paid for by the taxpayers. The lawyers, sometimes for a half a dozen parties in the abuse and neglect cases, are in the vast majority of those cases being paid for by the taxpayers. The court has to appoint lawyers for the children, for the parents, sometimes separate lawyers for each parent. You know, it's not uncommon now to have children that come from multiple parents in a case, and it's not unusual to have sometimes 3, 4, 5 lawyers appointed for a single abuse and neglect case. If the gentleman's amendment is adopted, those lawyers will have to be appointed through 2 levels of appeal and review. Now it's 1. We preserve the current system as to those cases in this bill. I would mention one other thing, and I reject the gentleman's argument that this is a court, the intermediate appellate court as it would be created under this bill now, would be a court only for corporations and not people. This court would have jurisdiction of every appeal of every civil case. That's every personal injury case, every case that involves a person or a corporation, all the civil cases. It is a court designed for the people, and a court designed now to make sure and enhance the chances that all cases are going to have a thorough review. Something which, to their credit, our Supreme Court of Appeals is trying to afford in every case now, but is challenged in doing that because of the volume of its work. And so, for those 2 principal reasons of delay and cost, I urge rejection of the gentleman's amendment.
Is there further discussion? Further discussion. The senator from Harrison County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I sat here and listened to the gentleman's amendment and the arguments against it, and quite frankly, I think it exposes the hypocrisy of the entire attempt to create an intermediate court of appeals. No delay. We don't want any delay for abuse and neglect cases and criminal cases. But we heard here over and over again that the intermediate court would not cause any delay for our small businesses, for our folks that are looking for justice in our court system. But clearly there will be delay, or there would be no reason not to add criminal, abuse, neglect, and all the cases the gentleman from Ohio suggested. What about the expansion of law? We need the expansion of law so that our circuit courts will know how to act in criminal and abuse and neglect cases. We need it for the corporate cases, we need it for the insurance cases, but evidently we have enough law in the criminal arena, in the abuse and neglect arena. What could be more expeditious than to be able to immediately move to an intermediate court for a decision that may resolve everything for the criminal defendant or the child who's at risk? Almost every other state, with the exception of one or two, who have an intermediate court, and we're talking about states with 10, 15, 20 times more population we do, they have criminal cases going to their intermediate court. We'll be out of the mainstream if we don't allow these cases to go to our intermediate court, out of the mainstream, which was another argument for the creation of the intermediate court. How could we be out of the mainstream? How could we allow that to happen? Now, cost. I've risen up here several times to talk about the hidden costs that aren't in the fiscal note. They didn't exist when we were just doing this for the U.S. Chamber. And the insurance companies that do business here in West Virginia and take our citizens' money but refuse to give it back when there's a good claim. We weren't worried about those hidden costs, but now there's hidden costs by all the extra taxpayer money that's going to go to staff to address this second layer of bureaucracy, this second layer of regulation, this new creation of an entire new level of government. Now there's hidden costs. Where's the fiscal note on what it's going to cost our agencies to address the additional intermediate court when it's just a civil case? We participate in civil cases every day at the state level. Lawyers paid by the taxpayer, that is a cost. Lawyers in our agencies are lawyers paid by the taxpayer. The lawyers that work for the Attorney General's office are lawyers that are paid by the taxpayer. But yet we're going to deny this much needed intermediate appellate court to the people who need it the most, the people accused of crimes, the people whose rights we must zealously defend, the people who may be us because of these hidden costs. Justice for some, U.S. Chamber of Commerce, insurance industry, but not for all. I recommend passage of the gentleman's amendment.
Is there further discussion? Further discussion? Senator wish to close debate? Not. The question for the Senate is adoption of the amendment is offered by the Senator from Ohio County. All those in favor will say aye. Roll call has been demanded. Is the demand sustained? The demand is sustained. All those in favor of the Senator from Ohio's amendment will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question being 14 yeas, 20 nays, 0 absent not voting, less than a majority of those present and voting, having voted in the affirmative, I declare the amendment rejected. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not. The bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 517, creating State Parks and Recreation Endowment Fund.
Junior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the bill over one day while retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? So ordered.
Senate Bill 573, supplementing, amending, and increasing appropriations of public monies for claims against states. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not. The bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 575, designating local fire department as safe surrender site to accept physical custody of certain children from lawful custodian.
Junior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the bill lie over one day while retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 576, relating to management of public records. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not. The bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Senate Bill 600, creating special revenue account designated military authority fund. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not. The bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 607, reporting motor vehicle crashes to owners.
Junior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the bill lie over one day while retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered.
Senate Bill 618, conforming West Virginia law to federal distance requirements for locations of salvage yards.
Junior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the bill over one day while retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 665, requiring persons convicted of certain crimes on or after March 8, 1995, provide DNA samples. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not the bill be engrossed, advance to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 670, amending service of process on non-resident persons or corporate entities. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not the bill be engrossed, advance to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 676, permitting fees from Child Abuse Registry be used for information technology support costs. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not the bill be engrossed, advance to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 678, waiving fines and fees for completing Getting Over Addicted Lifestyle Successfully program. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, sir. Senator Romano moved to amend the bill on page 1, section 10.
The senator from Harrison County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read.
Is there objection? Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senator may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a good bill that is introduced by the senator from Wetzel. I apologize to my friend from Wetzel. The county slipped my mind. Originally introduced by the senator from Wetzel in order to provide the opportunity to retain your driver's license by certain people convicted of crimes who go through a very special program known as the GOLD program. After we passed this out of judiciary with some appropriate changes, I received some calls and some information that we may have overlooked. The fact that our use of the word penalties might also include the actual sentence for the crime, that a jail sentence could be considered a penalty. My amendment simply adds the word monetary before penalties, because the idea behind this bill was to relieve the individual person who had gone through this program and done what was required of them, to relieve them of certain fines, penalties, and assessments so that they could regain their driver's license and become a productive citizen once again. I'd recommend passage of the amendment.
Is there further discussion? The senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. As was mentioned by our colleague from Harrison County, this is a unique and good program that the Division of Corrections has established, and their idea is to have people who complete it successfully be able to re-engage in societal life when they come out, ability to work and that sort of thing. What they identified was as an obstacle was some people aren't able to get a driver's license because they have these unpaid fines. So the committee worked it pretty carefully, and we made sure that the committee adopted amendments to make it clear that we're dealing with fines, fees, forfeitures. I think it all does relate to money, but the senator's amendment clarifies and, in my judgment, improves the bill. So I urge the adoption of his amendment.
Is there further discussion? Further discussion? Not. The question before the Senate is adoption of the amendment as offered by the senator from Harrison County. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not. The bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2086, Uniform Real Property Electronic Recording Act. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, sir. The Committee on the Judiciary moved to amend the bill by striking out everything
the
after
senator from Morgan
clause.
County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent of the Senate to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senator may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. The amendment adopted by the Judiciary Committee and recommended to this body is a strike and insert amendment for the entire bill. There aren't a whole lot of significant changes from that which was contained in the original House bill, but one major change was that the Division of Highways the Commissioner of Highways demurred and did not want to be the chair of the organization formed for purposes of implementing these standards. And so the committee added in the place of the Commissioner of Highways, the West Virginia Secretary of State. Both would remain on the committee, on the commission that's designed to do this work. And we added a couple other people to it, Mr. President, in the strike and insert amendment that were not included in the House bill. We added a representative of the West Virginia University College of Law with experience in real property law, and we added a representative of the Real Estate Lawyers Division of the West Virginia State Bar. And so, Mr. President, I would urge the adoption of the Judiciary Committee's strike and insert amendment, and I believe there may be an amendment to the amendment.
Is there further discussion? Further discussion? Yeah, you good? Question for the Senate is adoption of the Judiciary Committee amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it, the ayes do have it. I declare the Judiciary Committee amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Let's see. Bill be advanced.
Engrossed House Bill 4007, Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act, second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, sir. The Committee on the Judiciary moved to amend the bill by striking out everything after the
Senator
enacting
from
clause.
Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I question unanimous consent to explain the committee amendment in lieu of having it read.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senator may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee amendments to this House bill, it is a strike and insert amendment, but it's largely technical. The bill, both the bill and the amendment, add a single section to the state code. The committee amendment inserted into the section references to terms that are already defined in state code. For instance, fetus. And the strike and insert amendment would say fetus has the same meaning as is set forth in 16.2M2 of the code. The Born Alive language that came to us from the House used the word member, and the committee adopted an amendment which inserts fetus in lieu of member. We weren't sure. It referred to extraction from its mother of that member at any stage of development, and that wasn't, so far as we could find what the House sent us, it wasn't a term that's defined or used elsewhere in the code. But it seemed pretty clear to us that it was a reference to an unborn child, a fetus. I'd be happy to try to answer questions from members of the Senate, Mr. President. Otherwise, I urge the adoption by the Senate of the committee's recommended amendment.
Is there further discussion? Further discussion? Not. The question before the Senate is adoption of the Judiciary Committee amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it, the ayes do have it. I declare the committee amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Bill be advanced.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 4058 relating to pharmacy benefit managers, second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, sir. The Committee on Health and Human Resources moved to
Senator
amend the
from
bill.
Marshall County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent to explain the amendments in lieu of having them read, and that all amendments are considered as one.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senator may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a strike and insert amendment that basically reinserts language that was previously deleted in this section that provided for penalties. The language provides that rules adopted pursuant to this section shall set forth penalties or fines, including monetary fines. Mr. President, last year we passed a complex bill relating to pharmacy benefit managers, more commonly known as PBMs. This bill in the strike and insert amendment merely addresses potential ambiguity between the substance of the bill and subsequent rules. I urge adoption.
Is there further discussion? Further discussion? Not. The question for the Senate is adoption of the committee amendment as offered by the Senator from Marshall County. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it, the ayes do have it. I declare the committee amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not, the bill be advanced. Are there further bills on second reading?
No, sir.
Bills on first reading. The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that all bills on first reading be considered read a first time and advanced to second reading.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. Introduction of guest. Introduction of guest. Remarks by members of the Senate. The senior senator from the 5th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I just rise to want to talk about infrastructure, both highways and our infrastructure of water, sewer, broadband, and such as that. I was reminded today in my drive here from Huntington just how important infrastructure is. If you look at the bridge that is shut down right now, at least the eastbound on I-64, and driving that every day, I crossed it evidently when it was bad and didn't know it, but thank God we had a DOH employee that saw that there was a problem, and if you have seen the pictures, there's actually, you can see the river from standing on the bridge. But this reminds me of why it is important that we have invested in infrastructure, particularly highways. But I also want to caution you that we do look at our districts and say we really need, my district is, needs more funding or this, that, and the other. But I want to tell you that we still are only part way on our step forward. We have to invest more in our maintenance throughout the whole state. If you remember, you're still getting calls, I still get calls today about potholes and problems on our secondary roads. Well, this is a major highway that we're having problems with. Thank goodness it's on the schedule to be replaced, but we have got to invest not only in our highways, but we've got to invest in our wastewater, water, and broadband. And being a member of the Broadband Council, I want to tell you that next week, the state of West Virginia is going to be recognized for their work in broadband. The Pew Charitable Trust is coming out with a study next Tuesday that highlights the work of this body and the body across in the House and how much we've done, and particularly with the Broadband Council. And we have a bill that's going to be introduced here soon that's coming up that we worked on from the Broadband Council standpoint. Now, I'm a non-voting ex officio member, the same as the senior senator from the 6th. But we actually have gotten a middle mile proposal that First Energy and Appalachian Power are a part of. The Public Service Commission has been reviewing it, will come out. This is going to really help us from an infrastructure standpoint. First, I want to applaud the people that have been working on this broadband. We've made a lot of progress, but as you'll find out, we're in the top 10 states in the country in where we've advanced things. We've still have a bill coming over, and we've got to complete what we're doing on highways. The governor claimed that there's no value to the right-of-ways of highways, and we should allow broadband to be able to be laid or put in the right-of-way of the highways. And I want to tell you that I think we've got to codify that. And the importance of codifying that is the fact that it's of a high importance. If you're going to be in business, if you're an individual, if you're in education, if you're in health care, in the future, broadband and access to broadband is important. And this is an important bill, and the DOH portion of this is vitally important. We have a bill that's going to come over from the House, and we have to make sure that we insert the legislation to codify and raise the flag of what the governor has said, that it is going to be that we will be allowed to put broadband along the highways. And if in this state, we're geographically challenged because of our terrain. And if we don't have the right-of-ways of the highways to be able to expand broadband for our citizens, we have no chance of competing in the 21st century. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks? Further remarks? The Junior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. On your senators' desks, I wanted to just kind of add a little something extra. We had those students here from the First Two Network. They received a $7 million National Foundation grant to really improve the STEM education in our high schools and colleges, and so they're just trying to find their way. They're just getting started. So I put a couple little pieces of information on your desk. One of the things I pointed out to them, there was nothing for anyone to contact them, and that was just an oversight. So on the one page that doesn't have the graphs on it, there is the contact information to one of those professors, and I think she was at Fairmont State. You know, when I was talking to my daughter this week, it was kind of ironic because she had decided she wanted to talk about what she wanted to be when she grew up. She's 13, and you know, talking different things, but one thing she talked about being a chemistry or a biology major. She said, well, Dad, I can't do that, and that floored me because I've tried to empower my girls to run the world, much less not be afraid to go into a science. So when these guys came along this week, if you noticed up in the gallery, most of them were females. Now that was just coincidental. There's males and females with this, but I really encourage anybody, if you have interested high schoolers or early college students, one of the facts that they brought out when I met with them yesterday evening was that 70% of students, especially female students, that go into college for a STEM-related education drop out or change their majors. So they're really trying to encourage those girls and boys, but to stay focused, to mentor them, to tutor them along, show them that it can be done. And so they have a camp this summer. And so this list of the person who's the coordinator at the bottom of that, if you have any constituents or students in your districts that may be interested, you can contact them. They'll get you more information, help those kids get attached. It's all covered. But it's to try to develop an passion and also an encouragement that they can do these things. And so I'd like to pass that along. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Further remarks? The Senator from Boone County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the remarks by the Senior Senator from the 5th and the Junior Senator from the 17th be printed in the appendix of the Journal.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. The Senator from Preston County.
Thank you, Mr. President. You really don't want me to talk today, do you? I don't know what's going on with that microphone, but hopefully we can get it fixed for tomorrow. I didn't really plan on talking today, but I just wanted to throw a few bits out there for consideration. I appreciate the Senior Senator from the 5th bringing up the importance of infrastructure, specifically broadband infrastructure, because just about 15 minutes before coming to the floor, I received notice from a broadband provider in my district that was trying to expand. They have permission to use poles attachment from the power company and from the telephone company to run a fiber optic line from Kingwood, where their substation, I guess is what you would call it, or the RT, is up to a new motel that's just being built now. Should be open for operation July 1st of next year or this year. And you know, we're pretty excited about that opportunity for tourism and bringing people in. And of course, broadband is very important. What we didn't realize was that the Division of Highways, according to his testimony, has thrown up another roadblock for them to attach their fiber to the poles. That before they will allow a permit to work in the roadway in order to string that fiber up, they're now going to require a signed and notarized affidavit from the utility companies that they have permission, even though they have assigned permission for them already. And I'm just wondering, I'm going to get to the bottom of it. I've only had a few minutes to think about it, and we certainly haven't had a chance to investigate any further, but I certainly would hope that our state is not throwing up roadblocks to unnecessarily hamper the expansion of broadband in the rural communities and the underserved and unserved areas where I live in. Amazingly enough, my business, my former business in Kingwood, had the availability of 100 megabit service. I live 2.5 miles out of town and I can't get DSL there. But yet, when this internet provider applied for grant money to expand out in there, or it wasn't even grant money, it was actually guaranteed loans to expand out to our area, it was blocked by the incumbent companies under the argument that it was a served area already. Well, there might be some people in my neighborhood who are served, but I'm not. And I'll assure you that at least 30 to 40 people who collected in my garage 3 years ago and signed a petition to get broadband, they're not served either. So I don't know where we go with this, but quite frankly, it's a serious issue, and there's roadblocks being put up that are unnecessary. I understand when private business tries to compete and they'll throw up a roadblock to keep competition down. But if our own government's doing the same thing, I've got a problem with that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Further remarks? Further remarks? Miscellaneous business, the Junior Center from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pending announcements, I move the Senate stand adjourned until Monday at 11 a.m.
Are there announcements? Senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on the Judiciary will meet today at 1 o'clock p.m. in room 208, West Wing.
Further announcements? The Senior Senator from the 15th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't know whether this is necessarily, I need to do this as an announcement, but at 3 p.m. this afternoon, we're doing the stakeholder meeting on the Greyhound bill, and anybody, if any member is welcome to attend, and it's up in the Senate Finance Room at 3 p.m. Thank you.
Further announcements. The Senator from Upshur County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Monday, 1 o'clock, Natural Resources Committee will meet. Thank you.
The Senator from Wood County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Banking and Insurance will meet Monday, February 10 at 2 p.m. and 451 now.
Senator from Preston County.
Thank you, Mr. President. The subcommittee for Senate Bill 274 from the Natural Resource Committee will meet on Monday afternoon, immediately following the Natural Resource Committee meeting in room 208 West. That would be myself, the Senator from Monongalia, and the Senator from Nicholas.
Thank you. Further announcements? Further announcements. Not the question before the Senate is, shall the Senate stand adjourned until Monday morning at 11 a.m. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the Senate adjourned until Monday morning at 11 a.m.